I bid you welcome.
To a new world of gods and monsters.
How do you like that, eh?
Even a man who's pure at heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolfbane blooms and the moon is full and bright.
I love dead. Hate living.
It's a perfect night for mystery and horror. The air itself is filled with monsters.
(1930), the dawn of a new decade. The Great Depression era had just begun a few months prior in late 1929, and the entire world nearly felt the effects of the economic crisis that would last until the end of the decade and into World War II. Universal Studios certainly wasn't immune to the harsh realities of the Depression. And with Carl Laemmle Jr. now running things, the studio was to see many soaring successes, as well as many blistering defeats. Yet 1930 proved to be one of the most important years in history for Universal. The studio would win its first Academy Awards, receiving both Outstanding Production, what would now be considered Best Picture, as well as Best Director, Lewis Milestone, for the pre-code epic anti-war film All Quiet on the Western Front. Later that year would see the release of The Cat Creeps, the talkie remake of Paul Linney's The Cat and the Canary from 1927. Finally, 1930 led to the production of one of Universal's most enduring and iconic films, a film that would usher in the golden age of horror and change the world forever. While it wouldn't be released until the following year, Dracula began production in September of 1930. I'm Ian the Wolfman, and welcome to Season 2 of the Monster Archives. By 1930, Uncle Carl Laemmle basked in the glory of the grandeur of all he and his many cohorts had accomplished at Universal Studios. He resided at 1275 Benedict Canyon Drive in a mansion called Dios Dorados. His home, like the film studio, even had its own zoo. While Jr. was technically running day-to-day production at the studio, Carl Sr. still maintained much of the final say in many aspects, including Jr.'s personal life. But we'll get to that in a bit. The transition to the talkie era had proven bumpy for much of Hollywood. Lon Chaney had, of course, passed away of throat cancer on August 26, 1930. Many actors and actresses didn't make the leap, either out of fear or simply such a vast change of style. Laura LaPlante, Mary Philbin, and Norman Carey all faded into obscurity in the age of sound. Even director Erich von Stroheim was washed up as a major studio director. It was anything but a smooth transition. You either adjusted with the times or were lost. If you were to ask Carl Laemmle if there were a curse upon him or his mighty kingdom at Universal, he would have certainly scoffed. Even with Irving Thalberg long gone and thriving at MGM Studios, his son, Jr., had inherited the throne. Universal publicity for Carl Laemmle Jr. dubbed him the baby mogul. Like his father, Jr. was barely 5'3", small, and shared his father's bright eyes and cheerful smile. And his vision rivaled his father's. Dracula, Frankenstein, the Mummy, It was Junior who personally pushed for and produced these films, thus creating a genre that took on its very own universe. The films are obviously still celebrated, with the cast, characters, and directors much more remembered, but it was Junior who had the initial draw and attraction to horror that pushed forward to greenlight the films. Without him, the likes of Frankenstein and Dracula may have never been made. Junior had actually apprenticed at Universal as a teenager. He was a writer, producer, and associate producer before he received his position as studio manager. While it's often reported that Junior was given the keys to the kingdom, he did put in the work prior to rising in rank. His vision for the studio was to mix top-class product with Universal's typical fare to gain both prestige and profit. And, for a time, it worked. His 7-year tenure over Universal City produced some of the most memorable films of the golden age of Hollywood. On April 21st, 1930, just 1 week before Junior's 22nd birthday, All Quiet on the Western Front had its gala world premiere at the Fox Carthy Circle Theater in Los Angeles. Much like his father, Junior was willing to gamble as well. All Quiet on the Western Front was a massive risk, one that Junior took upon himself to personally and courageously produce. Studio advisors, including Carl Sr., warned against such a risky undertaking. The production tab ended up totaling $1,448,863.44. Praise was unanimous. The film raised over $3 million. Critics and audiences alike lauded the film. The final scene still packs one hell of a punch. Some film historians still consider the film the most prestigious in the history of the entire studio. For Carl Jr., it was a massive Academy Award-winning triumph. Still, not everything was golden statues and successful films. Junior and Senior Laemmle butted heads in areas of their personal lives. In the early 1930s, Carl Sr. had vowed to disown his son if he married actress Constance Cummings. This remained Junior's biggest regret that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Meanwhile, on the business side of things, while All Quiet on the Western Front had been a staggering success, other productions proved less than profitable. King of Jazz, a Technicolor musical produced by Junior, whose budget had nearly reached $3 million, had lost a fortune. It did, however, win the Academy Award for interior decoration. Still, the studio's loss for 1930 was $2.2 million in the midst of the Great Depression. But let's shift focus. Considering The Cat Creeps is a lost film, there was little information to be found on the budget, nor how much revenue it brought in at the box office. The film certainly didn't win any Oscars, but it does appear to have been successful enough. Girls, you'd better hang on to the boyfriend's arm, for here is the weirdest, most mysterious, and icily thrilling picture of this year, last year, and all the years. Its drama will rip down all of your poise and test your bravery. Laughs turn into shrieks, and shrieks into laughs. It's a wow. With a tagline like that, it's such a shame that The Cat Creeps is a lost film. Sound now ruled the cinema. As with the 1929 re-release of The Phantom of the Opera, it appeared Universal sought to release more of their silent hits with sound. While the re-release of Phantom filmed new footage, it also utilized film from the original 1925 silent release. By 1930, Universal planned to remake Paul Linney's silent expressionist classic, The Cat and the Canary, as a full talkie. The studio attempted to rehire its star, Laura LaPlante, to repeat the leading role of Annabelle West. LaPlante was unavailable for the role, which ultimately went to Helen Twelvetrees. leading to the title being changed to The Cat Creeps, although many of the film's poster ads contained a clever subtitle, While the Canary Sleeps. The film was directed by Rupert Julian, the director of The Phantom of the Opera. The Cat Creeps was the final film he directed before his career in film faded. He passed away on December 27, 1943, at his home in Hollywood at the age of 64. The film starred Helen Twelvetrees as Annabelle West, Raymond Hackett as Paul, Neil Hamilton as Charles Wilder, and Lawrence Grant as Crosby. Neil Hamilton would play Commissioner Gordon in the 1966 Batman television series, while Grant would go on to play supporting roles in The Mask of Fu Manchu in 1932, Werewolf of London in 1935 as Colonel Sir Thomas Forsyth, Son of Frankenstein in 1939 as the Burgomaster, and The Ghost of Frankenstein in 1942 as the Mayor. The screenplay was written by Gladys Lehman, with cinematography by Hal Moore and Jerry Ash. Maurice Pivar was the editor. Much like Dracula, the following year, a Spanish-language version of the film titled La Voluntad del Muerto, which literally translates as The Will of the Dead, was filmed on the same set of The Cat Creeps at night. It too is a lost film. La Voluntad del Muerto was directed by Enrique Tovar Avalos and George Melford, who would go on to direct the Spanish version of Dracula, releasing the following year. The film starred Antonio Morena, Lupita Tovar, best remembered for her role as Ava in the Spanish version of Dracula, and Andres de Segurola. Carl Laemmle thought this version of the film to be superior and spookier than the English version. The Cat Creeps opened in New York on November 7, 1930. La Voluntad del Muerto was released on December 12, 1930, with a premiere gala being held at Los Angeles, California Theater on January 23, 1931. Less than 2 minutes of The Cat Creeps survive, as they were incorporated into the 1932 Universal short film, Boo, which also utilized footage from Nosferatu and Frankenstein. The 4 sound discs for the film survive in the UCLA Film and Television Archives. Contemporary reviews of the film were very positive. Film Daily declared the film as excellent, with an all-around fine cast, adding that Rupert Julian's direction is intelligent and effective. Exhibitors Forum found that the film was a mystery thriller, expertly produced with an excellent cast, specifically noting Twelvetrees and Raymond Hackett. Variety found the film and production values to be first-rate and the punch thrills neatly timed and built, while finding that the creepy thrill value is still there, but in the translation from silent to sound, it has been badly slowed up. The Cat Creeps seems to have been a popular and successful entry in Universal's 1930 selection, yet nothing could compare to the sprawling, visceral anti-war epic, All Quiet on the Western Front. The award-winning success of that film gave Universal Studios well-deserved hope for the future and plenty of pride to boot. Yet Carl Sr. was cautious, perhaps even worried. Losing $2.2 million in the midst of the Depression was no small matter. The following year, 1931, would mark his 25th anniversary as a filmmaker, and he wanted nothing more than a major hit of a film to mark the milestone. Universal and the Laemmles had received their Academy Awards on Wednesday, November 5th, 1930. That date marked 10 days until the completion of Junior's big, new production. It was a film that Carl Sr. had not approved, nor did he look forward to. Todd Browning's Bela Lugosi starring vampire horror thriller, Dracula. It appears that the idea of Dracula disturbed Carl Sr. Carl was devoutly Jewish, and the thought of releasing a film featuring a tall, handsome, sensual vampire devil that slipped into the rooms of young virginal women to drink their blood was too much for him to take. Sure, there was a massively successful Broadway play that had run for 261 performances from October 5th, 1927 through May 19th, 1928. And the Hungarian star of the Broadway play possessed all of the exotic allure to enrapture potential audiences. Still, Bela Lugosi and Count Dracula genuinely scared Carl Sr., while Jr. was more excited for the potential of this thriller than, perhaps, any film released by Universal thus far. Dracula was coming, and there was nothing Carl Laemmle Sr. could do to stop it. But before we dive deep into the history of the 1931 vampiric classic, let's take a look at the director of the film. Jr. had respectfully lured Todd Browning to direct the picture. Browning was a master of the silent era. His aptitude for the weird and macabre was just the right combination to bring the first true talkie horror film to the silver screen. Join us next episode as we further familiarize ourselves with the Edgar Allan Poe of cinema, Mr. Todd Browning. This episode of the Monster Archives was written and produced by me, Ian Bates. For more on the Monster Archives, including scheduling updates and news, be sure to follow @Universal Studios Monsters on Instagram. And thank you for listening.